Welcome to the Moon Collective Sanctuary. I'm Dr. Lydia Luna, and I invite you to join me on a journey of self-discovery, healing, and transformation as we explore the depths of our inner and outer world to unlock our truest potential. All right, Kathryn, I'm so excited to have you here today. For those that don't know, Kathryn is my very good friend and colleague, so I had to bring her on to talk about astrology. I mean, you specialize in somatic work, EMDR, you're an LMFT, you're doing a lot. But I think today we can talk about astrology. So maybe share what brought you to astrology, and for those that may not be as familiar, what is astrology and how do you use it in your work and or to help with gaining understanding, insight into who we are?
I've been doing it for, I don't know, maybe 12-ish years, which kind of feels long and short because there are obviously astrologers that have been doing this for a really long time. But I got really into it after I had some very intense experiences, breakups in my early 30s. And that kind of led me down this spiritual road that I was really just looking for answers. And I got really into a lot of these like esoteric things like numerology and astrology. And I was doing Jungian analysis at the time. I was in it. And I was also, in this course at the Jung Institute. And it all kind of like went together in this, it was all like very mysterious stuff. And I became obsessed with astrology, like completely obsessed. And I feel like so many people are so into it now. But when I was doing this, it was like I was still had to be like kind of quiet about it because it was like, I don't know, weird or, just kooky. Whereas now it's like, literally every person you meet, they're like, I'm a Virgo, like right when you meet them. But it was not like that at the time. So I was like learning all this stuff and I was really looking for answers. I really feel like I was at the time searching for like answers for the future and how things would unfold. But what I found was like a deeper understanding of myself through studying my own astrology chart. So it was kind of an accident, that wasn't like intentional, but I just kept going down these rabbit holes. And like the best way to learn astrology, in my opinion, is to really study your own chart backwards and forwards. And like once you really understand that, then I think you can really start making connections and noticing patterns and really like having more of an intuitive understanding of the way that the language is, because I think astrology is a language. Yeah, I just became so obsessed. And like for years, like all I was doing every night was just reading astrology books, like very old, weird, esoteric books. And there's so many. And then I started doing it with my clients. At the time, well, this is where I met you when we were working at Cliffside. And I started doing it with my clients because, there are so many of these clients in rehab that had been, chronic relapsers, been in and out of treatment so many times. It was like, oh, another therapist, like this is boring, like, so you kind of have to like spice it up and pique their interest. And so I started doing their charts with them just to like get them interested in something. And it was like a huge hit. Well, most of the time. There were some people that were like, I don't want anything to do with that, but that was very rare, surprisingly. So that kind of started my whole, I have like this massive database now of natal charts from like, 12 years. And since I was able to see so many people through that job, I have been able to notice a lot of different patterns with, different mental health disorders and different symptoms. And so it's like really interesting to cross those like psychology and astrology and diagnosis and, attachment stuff So yeah, it's just super interesting. It always keeps me stimulated.
What have you noticed in terms of connections between psychology and the charts?
I mean, so many things. I mean, usually you can see ADHD in someone's chart. You can see like attachment stuff with, moon placements and aspects with other planets. You can see, I mean, it's a lot. It's amazing. I have no like proof. These are just
Right.
patterns that I've noticed.
Correlations.
Yeah, that I, through experience, I've noticed. And it helps me understand, like when someone comes to me for support, as a therapist, I can kind of like get a deeper look to their, nature and their patterns, their tendencies. It helps me like understand them quicker. And, I think that one of the ultimate goals of therapy when you're going to therapy is self-awareness, right? Like that is the ultimate goal, like if you're being really objective. And this chart is just a very like, it's like right there, and you can't argue with it. And it can point out things to you that maybe you've always felt, but you've never been able to put words to.
I'm always curious, like, how did this even originate? Somebody just looked at the stars, saw patterns, and was like, okay, people that were born in this phase have these tendencies or personality traits?
I mean, I think, well, it was like in all these different cultures around the world. It wasn't just like one. So it was like everywhere. So there's something to that,
And even some cultures really rely on astrology, right? Like
like in like Vedic astrology, like in India.
Yeah. Like they choose wedding dates
Totally
around, this information. It's so interesting. And here, I think you're saying it's true. Like we're bringing it in more to our daily lives. But so with all of this information, how do you use it like in the healing work? I heard you say you understand them better and even helps them kind of make sense of maybe certain experiences or how they are.
Yeah, well, certain experiences, maybe you would look at like transits for that. So like that's like what's impacting a person now, like where the planets are and how that is impacting your personal astrology in this moment. And that's like always changing. Sometimes you can get a sense of like external events, but Vedic astrology is more exact in that way. And that's not, I don't do that. I do Western astrology, which is more like personality based.
I was reading about, like you said, transits right now. So Saturn return is a really significant transit, right? So can you share more about Saturn return and Pluto transit? What do they mean and how does one use them in their healing phase? Because my understanding is that when your Saturn return is happening, it may mean some really life-changing
life lessons. So Saturn is like lessons, and it can be like very harsh. It's like a teacher. So Saturn takes like 28 to 30 years to fully orbit in your chart from when you were born. That's why it usually takes place around age 28 to 30. I mean, I feel like mine really went until I was like 31. And that's when I got into astrology, like 30, 31. So for me, my experience was like I was totally on the wrong path. And it kind of just made me erase everything and start over. And it was like, you need to go this way. But I think I'm lucky that I got to experience that actually, because I didn't end up miserable because I made like the wrong choices. It was really traumatic. It was super intense. But, in hindsight, it was a huge blessing.
So everybody goes through a Saturn return?
Everybody.
Mm-hmm. And this is supposed to be a major life lesson.
It's lessons. And like, it can be like when you are like pointed to your purpose, or if you're on the wrong track, or if you're in the wrong relationship, or if you're in the wrong job, then, it'll like shift you, it'll like eat you up and spit you out into the right place. Hopefully.
You're saying it usually is from 28 to 30, 31. Are there times where it just happens later in life, earlier in life?
Well, Saturn will return again, like 28 years later.
Aren't there like certain rituals people are supposed to do during this time too?
So solar return, that's actually some area of astrology that I'm kind of like playing with right now because I'm trying to understand it a little bit better. So like your solar return, you get every year on your birthday, you get a new solar return chart. So it's like a new natal chart for that year. And you have to use the location that you are going to be in on your birthday. And then if you're in a different place, that shifts the planets. And it can shift where the planets are in the houses. So, like, here's an example. I made my husband go somewhere this year because I'm trying to learn. I'm like, is this real? Is this a thing? Because I'm always skeptical. I should also add that in. Like, I'm not like I feel like I'm always skeptical of all of this stuff.
Yeah, like there are no absolutes.
No, and so I experiment.
Yes.
So 2024, I was looking at his solar return, and I mean, I feel like the best place would have been like Japan, but we have a child, we had a baby. So it was like, we're not going to Japan. We had 1.5-year-old. So I kept playing with it and I found a pretty good chart for Hawaii. So we went to Kauai for his birthday and the year is still unfolding. So we'll see, there are some things that maybe I'm like, this could happen. I'm anticipating some like, maybe in these particular areas of like for his work. And
so it's like landing somewhere where it's going to give you like increased chance of having a great year.
Yeah.
Okay.
But in certain areas of life. So like if you are looking for, like for him, I focused on like work because he was wanting some changes to happen with his, situation. Like if you're looking for relationship or fertility, like if you want to have a baby, like these kinds of different things. If money is one, because the different houses each represent different areas of life. So you can kind of shift things around depending on where you go in the world, allegedly, to create better luck for yourself for that year. Where, so like if you want to meet someone, I would want to find, the like Venus and Jupiter maybe in the 7th house. That would be like, very positive. But you'd have to go wherever in the world is going to make that happen. Or it might only be one of the planets in that sense. But anyway, I'm still experimenting. So TBD.
Yes, on solar returns.
Yeah. But there is like that belief.
What are some of the most misunderstood aspects?
Although I feel like people know a lot more now. I remember like years ago I was at a party and I heard some girl like who's like, yeah, I'm an astrologer. And she was like reading someone's thing for them. And I was eavesdropping and I'm like, that's so wrong. Everybody has a different interpretation of things, but there's a lot of bullshit out there.
Yeah. So how does one differentiate?
I mean, you have to get a ton of readings and use your intuition and see who sounds like they know what they're talking about. That's what I did.
Deciphering and educating ourselves and not just going with like whatever.
I had a really good astrology reading recently from this super old guy. I don't even know how I found him. I like dig on the internet for, I think like it was maybe a Reddit thread. It was like weird. He's a palm reader and an astrologer in like, must be in like his 80s, maybe even older. And I went to his apartment in, somewhere in West LA for a palm reading. But he's like an amazing astrologer. He's been doing it forever.
That's cool.
And his apartment was like, it was just books. It was all astrology books and palmistry books. It was super cool, but it was very strange.
What was the reading? Now I'm curious.
I can't remember all of it, but I hadn't gotten one in a long time. So I was like, I'm really not looking for the person that's like really popular. I'm looking for the person that's super legit, that maybe is not popular. Because there's so many older people that have been doing this forever that really know what they're talking about. I'm not looking for the Instagram.
I'm thinking this is like a tool, right? We use this as a tool to help us understand, maybe make sense of our world or what's happening.
Yeah, and ourselves. Yeah, but and the things we've been through. That's why I went at this last year at this time, and yeah, he was great. He was amazing, and he told me like I'm gonna be this feisty old lady who's like like really in the mix of things. Like I'm still going to be like doing stuff like this and, being rebellious. And I was like, that sounds accurate. Yeah. I'm not going to like, just be a quiet old grandma.
I think that's why I appreciate you, by the way, too, because you like to know what's going on and do things that like are a little bit outside of the norm.
I love that. That's why it's always, it's a little disappointing for me when everybody gets into the thing that I found, that I'm like in love with. And then I'm like, it becomes less special, but it's okay. Everybody should, astrology is wonderful.
So because we hear about it more on the individual realm. So what about the collective conscious? Are there any major planetary alignments happening now that are influencing humanity's evolution?
Well, the big thing that's happening right now is the Pluto and Aquarius transit, which, if you're into this kind of thing, then you've probably heard about it. And I think that explains a lot of what's going on in our country right now. The last time that Pluto entered Aquarius was it was during the American Revolution. So it must have been like late 1700s, 1780, 1790, I think. But it was when like the Age of Reason began and, there was a revolution and, people were really challenging like things politically and, the system. And we're going through that again. So I think that we're in a moment that is really transformative and change is really scary. And it's long. It's going to be long. And we just started.
Long? Oh God, how long? Not 4 years?
It's like 15 to 20 years.
Oh God.
Yeah. No, Pluto moves slow. It's the most outer
right
planet, so it's very slow.
And I asked 4 years because I'm thinking,
Oh, this is just the beginning.
So what happens during this time?
It's like a revolution. Yeah, it's like, it's Pluto is transformative. That's what it does. It destroys and it transforms. It's like very powerful and it can get dark, but it's not going to stay that way.
So maybe that's what we hold on to, the transformative part, the understanding and embracing maybe even the darkness that we're going to experience, but it's temporary.
Yeah, and by temporary, it's like years, but
yeah.
but
it's not forever.
Yeah, it is temporary.
Do you have any words of encouragement just to know that this is what we're going to be facing?
I think that we are all like, our limits are really being tested of what we can withstand in terms of like discomfort, and I think, to be a human being, you really have to be able to withstand the discomfort of life and how chaotic and crazy everything can be and unpredictable. Anything could happen at any moment. And just living day-to-day life like that is hard. And you can't think about that every minute. Otherwise, you'd have a panic attack. So I think we just have to increase our capacity for discomfort.
And seeing what it brings up in us even as we're experiencing these times, right? Like when there's discomfort, then what is it bringing up in me? What insecurities, what feelings? And then maybe that's material to work with.
Taking it one day at a time. Not forgetting to like have fun, to focus on like the little pleasures. That's what I've been trying to do.
How do you do that? Because I know it's hard for people sometimes to even find what is fun, what is joyful.
You know what? I had a really dark few months recently. I was telling you about it, like the other weekend when I saw you, that I was like, had no joy.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling so much better since then.
Good.
Yeah, I feel like I'm experiencing joy again. And I don't know. I stopped watching the news completely. And I unfollowed every news source.
Yeah.
Because it was, it felt like every time I was opening up social media or turning on the TV, it was like getting shot. Just one thing after another. It's like endless.
Endless.
Every day there's a disaster. Every day there's something like devastating. Several times a day. So I think that had something to do with it. I'm also hormonal. I'm pregnant. It was winter. I was sick a couple of times in a row, which is like really intense when you're pregnant. Yeah, I think I was just in like I was having like a dark little time. Like where the things that usually bring me pleasure were not.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling better now.
What happens for you in the dark times, if you don't mind me asking? Like, do you feel devastated by the world, hopeless?
I
Do
think
you
hopeless.
question?
Hopeless is probably a good word.
Like when you see all the stuff in the news and then you're just like, what the hell?
We live in a really weird time where we're exposed, like we're exposed to so much information, and it's like so much to take in for all of us. And it's really overwhelming. Like no matter what side you're on, no matter what you believe, like we're all experiencing like the overwhelm of constant information.
I'm wondering still, like, how did you get out of it? Do you feel like it was just like
It was
momentary?
No, it was gradual.
Gradual,
The
yeah.
sun came out recently.
Yeah?
That was nice. Yeah, that was really helpful. Just like staying out in the sun. I have to go to bed really early, make sure I get good sleep.
Do you feel a sense of responsibility too now that you're a parent in terms of, I have to be okay because now I have a little human or humans that are relying on me and my well-being? How is that in terms of like transitioning to motherhood even, like that?
I mean, I'm not always going to be okay. That's just not realistic. But like, I can always stay calm. I can always like intend to stay calm for my child.
I'm curious if you're okay with going into some of this motherhood and fertility stuff. What do you think?
So yeah, one of the dimensions that I got really interested in when I was trying to get pregnant was fertility astrology.
Okay, share more about this.
Again, was just like searching for, like answers. And this is my language. This is how I orient to life and how I understand life. And it can be helpful for me to understand timing. I use astrology, but I also have I have a few different like systems of things that I use to find answers that I'm not going to go into all of that because it's very weird and
We like weird.
people won't understand. But I got really into understanding like the 5th house in astrology is your children. And so when I was like, I was trying to get pregnant and nothing was happening for a while. So I just started looking back. I have so many charts, so many, of like everyone I've ever met basically. So I'm always just like looking for patterns and trying to like understand. And there always is some pattern. You just have to like look. So I found an interesting correlation with my mom's chart because she had me and I was a total accident surprise. This is a whole other podcast. It's a very interesting story. But what she had in her chart was Uranus in her 5th house. So that Uranus is unpredictable and sudden change. It can be very unexpected. And it's the ruler of Aquarius. So my mom had like 6 miscarriages or something before she, and so she'd given up on like trying to get pregnant. And so when she was pregnant with me, she didn't even know till she was like 4 or 5 months pregnant. This is a true story. Like, I don't know how that's possible. Like I knew immediately with, all of my pregnancies, but,
Because you feel it in your body.
Yeah. And, for me, like I just start peeing like in the middle of the night, like immediately, like with implantation. This is what's happened. So I just know. So she got pregnant. It was very unexpected and it was in a very strange, bizarre way. I came into this world. And so she didn't know. She was very surprised, which is a very Uranian thing. And then when I was born, I have Aquarius rising, which is Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. So usually when you see a planet in someone's 5th house, it'll like tell you more about the kind of child that they have if they decide to have children. Or like they'll have the, like for that would be an Aquarius. child or someone with a lot of like Uranian energy. And Uranus is like right at the top of my chart. And so and I was like, that's really crazy, like that you can't make that up, but only I understand that, or someone who really understands astrology. And I just noticed all of these weird things. My fifth house is empty. And so that was really upsetting for me when I started this whole journey. But it doesn't matter because you can still get information from like what sign rules the house and what planets are aspecting that sign. And so like what kind of children you would have. It doesn't matter if the house is empty is the point. That doesn't mean you're not going to have children. So I was looking at transits also. And my husband had Saturn transiting his fifth house when I got pregnant with my son. And we had a Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn, which is pretty weird. And he was also born on our wedding anniversary.
That is so cool.
Which is the last day of the year, New Year's Eve. And that was very, very synchronistic.
Did you plan that?
No.
Okay.
No, my due date was January 8th.
Okay, that's right.
And then, when I got into this, I also really like predicting due dates. This is just like a little fun thing that I like, based on like the moon and this other, weird system that I use. And so I knew the moon was going into Taurus on like New Year's Eve, like at 2 a.m. or something. And that's when my water broke. So I knew it was like likely because I'm a Taurus. And a lot of times you'll have the moon sign of one of your parents' sun signs.
Okay.
That's like pretty common.
So even that's hereditary.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What should be the starting point for somebody who's interested and is like wanting to learn more about themselves or people?
Study your chart. Download the Time Passages app and just like read about yourself.
And what do you think about also like how much should be weighted on like partner compatibility and signs?
Well, that's actually really complex. It's not just like sun signs. You have to look at the whole picture. Like the moon signs, the synastry. Synastry starts are amazing. I love looking at the synastry of children and their parents.
What's synastry?
It's like when you place two charts over each other, and then you see like how the planets interact. It's fascinating.
There's so much here. So to relationships, romantic relationships, is this legit? Like to rely on like those apps that show you like compatibility?
No, I haven't really found the pattern's amazing. That's an amazing app. Yeah, that's probably the best one in my opinion. But I do think that there are some, there is an ease with some, if you have like the same moon sign as your partner, that's you get each other on an emotional level. But there's a lot of like the ideal marriage is like when you have inverse sun and moon signs. So like you're a Cancer, then you would want to find a man with a Cancer moon. Or you're a Libra moon, so you'd want to find a Libra sun. So that's like the inverse, and that's like good compatibility. But there's a lot more to it. It's not like that's what you should go looking for.
Can astrology be used as a tool to heal generational trauma? Yeah, generational patterns.
I think that generational trauma and patterns show up in astrology. Absolutely. I've noticed that. So I would say yes. I mean, I think that it would just help you get a better understanding. Like I come from a long line of, codependence, and like I totally see it in, all of the other charts of, family members that I've looked at.
So how can somebody work with their chart to integrate this knowledge and work on wounds, generational traumas, generational patterns?
I mean, I definitely don't think there's like one way. I think the awareness, having the consciousness, becoming conscious of the pattern is the first step. And once you become conscious of it and aware of it, then it kind of like starts to resolve itself in the outer world, right? Like when you become aware that you're a people pleaser, then you start noticing I'm people pleasing, you know? I notice when I'm doing it now, I get a lot of like physical symptoms that really help me identify, like stomach stuff. And especially when I'm pregnant because I'm super sensitive. So it'll be like, my digestion is like weird, and it's like, it's actually not something I ate. It's like the energy inside of me that's, you know, um, making it difficult to digest, whatever it is that I'm putting in my body. And, then I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I'm not like speaking up. Something is bothering me and I'm not.
Don't you think? Because this is what's happening for me too. The more I'm aware, like I can really feel it more in my body. Like
Yes.
now, when I
Yes.
betray myself, like not betray myself in like an extreme way, but
You get
even
sick.
when something
Like
happens,
immediately.
I get so like my body now tells me no,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
you don't like this.
1000%.
I'll wake up in the middle of the night and be like, it like tells me
And it's loud.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
it's louder.
I mean, I'll get sick. Like I'll get it like a cold or, like the stomach.
And maybe for the listeners, that's a reminder that when things are happening in their body, oftentimes we think, oh, I ate something bad, or oh, I must just be going through something like, physical. But this is a reminder, right? It's like, let's check in to see how we're treating ourselves, what we're doing, what we're not doing to honor ourselves.
Did someone cross a boundary, or is there a boundary being crossed that I didn't, like assert?
This is like a theme that's come up in other interviews. It's like checking in with who we are, how we're feeling, but also like taking past information from our lineage, our family, because we carry all of this and we're not even like that conscious or aware of it, but it really does have an impact on us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The body says no.
So maybe we can talk about the somatic work that you do.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it is, paying attention to sensation. And, like even like when we started this podcast, I was noticing like, I'm feeling totally like I'm tired because I'm pregnant. I'm not like tired like because I didn't sleep. I'm just like feeling low energy because I'm 30 weeks pregnant. But then I started noticing, wait, now all of a sudden I'm getting a little nervous, but it wasn't even me.
Yes. Yes, that's right. That's right. And that's why it's important to be in touch with ourselves, our feelings, because that's
Yeah.
when we can differentiate between us and the others.
Yes. And some people are more sensitive to others. I am one of those people. And that's a whole other thing that, everybody's an empath now. But I don't know. Is that another podcast?
Yeah. We know we're all energy. And so I think there is some kind of awakening happening now where we're becoming more aware and conscious that we are energy. But I think what's happening is a lot of people are claiming to know a lot of things that they may or may not actually know. It's like the trend right now, I think, to say certain things and be a certain way. And I just wonder if people are really doing the work that it takes to actually mean what they say they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's because there's so many, if I just go on Instagram, like I might diagnose myself as like autistic from what I've read, and I'm not. I'm a highly sensitive person, probably neurodivergent, but not on the spectrum.
I don't know about you, but I know when I was doing my studies in grad school, I was reading the DSM or even in undergrad, and I was like, oh my God, I have that, I have that, I have that. We all have a little bit of.
Oh, I actually did have ADD that I did end up getting diagnosed for. Inattentive type. Really would have helped me in school when I was younger. I was always spacing out, which is also, you can see these kinds of things in your astrology chart. I think I mentioned ADD before, but the inattentive ADD is very different than ADHD, hyperactive.
That's what makes it cool with the work that you're doing. So you can bring all these things up in the chart and then you work through a psychotherapy lens, let's say, and then also use somatic work. How do sessions look like with you when you're
Well, it sounds like it's
incorporating?
all over the place, but it's really not. It's like, it's pretty fluid. It's just like maybe one day there's like a different focus, but you always have to bring it back to the body. I think that that's like, you're not going to have any real shifts unless so many people are just like so heady. There's so many people that are intellectualizing. Like I always ask people like, well, how is that feeling? And they'll give you some like bunch of random thoughts, but not name one feeling.
Even I notice myself doing that sometimes. And it's like, but it's my own avoidance. I know what I'm doing. It's like, but yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to figure out. Also, to be fair, you have to like sit and like check in with it.
And language, some people don't have the language even. Yeah. So then how do you bring the body into this if people, have a difficult time expressing?
What are you noticing happening right now? Paying attention to like what's happening with them in the moment. Like you just took a deep breath, or you just, like looked away. Like that's like attunement, just being really, just like watching and being really present with someone and noticing what's going on for them, which can really freak people out sometimes. They're like, stop looking at me, but it's really healthy actually, because it just means someone's being really present with you and noticing what's happening with you and then helping you kind of like figure out what's going on when it is more challenging because you didn't have that attunement from your mother or,
Right.
Parents, caregiver, whatever, when you were little. And I mean, like when I'm with my son, I'm not like 100% present with him all the time. It's like not realistic for me. I need to zone out. And I have to like remind myself, like, I'm just saying I'm not like perfect at it. When I'm working, it's different. I'm getting paid for this, service. But so I see how it happens is my point, You miss things and you get impatient and a lot going on.
I love that you're being authentic and keeping it real with how it is, right? So even as a therapist, you're aware, and you're giving yourself grace to be human.
You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you were just calling out your own avoidance. It's like,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, it's not, we're human.
Yeah. And even doing this work has really shown me a lot about myself. Like, I do have an issue keeping eye contact, but I have to be very mindful when I'm doing this work to like stay with you, with eye contact. I really dislike giving so much eye contact, but it's like,
That's like a really powerful thing. Like when I was doing the somatic training, in one of the modules, there was this woman who was her energy was very anxious, like eager to please. And she really like attached to something that was going on with me. I don't really, we were partnering in this thing, and it was an eye contact exercise. And I requested before we started, I'm like, please do not look at me in the eye when we're doing like, I just know something weird is going to come up for me because it's like mom stuff. And she was just like staring me down like every time. And I was getting so activated, and I was like, it actually brought up more for me because I was advocating for myself, and I was like setting a boundary, and then it still wasn't working. And then I got really pissed. It was really interesting. I don't even know this person, like it's crazy.
it's so crazy, like the stuff.
But
that
I think
comes
it's
up.
like newborn. Because I remember like when I was nursing my son, it's all eye contact. So like what's going on with some, people with the eye contact thing when, I don't know, it seems very like precognitive to me.
And well, the more that I started noticing that in myself, then when I'm with family, I notice it too with
That
certain
they
family
have a hard
members.
time?
Yeah.
Have you ever
it's
done
so
that like eye gazing exercise with a partner?
I don't think I could do it.
Matthew's made me do it, of course. My husband has made me do it with him.
Even right now, I'm feeling so uncomfortable with the thought of like doing that.
My husband loves eye contact. Oh yeah, he like could, and I'm like, oh my God.
I mean, it could be very nice.
Yeah, we did it. We've done
sure.
it. I started crying. You start
Yeah?
crying.
Aw,
Well, I
yeah.
did in this one. This is like a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Wow. Yeah, because there is a lot to be said with just looking at somebody. Now you're reminding me, I did do this exercise. I don't know if it was like for school, But the staring, and it was pretty profound. I didn't like it at first, but then you see the soul. I almost like, that's what it felt like. I saw
But
their
it's like
soul.
fine with like dogs.
Right.
Like
Why is that?
my one dog, she is like the queen of eye gazing, and it's like the sweetest experience.
This is a good question. Why is it easier with pets than with fellow humans?
Humans are so much. Dogs are more innocent.
It's more unconditional love.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
pure. It's like babies, I guess.
I was just gonna say
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I was hanging out with my friend's son the day before yesterday. And he was just like, we have such a special bond, but he was just like staring at me, like in a way that he just loves me.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Like looking at me like,
and you could feel the love.
yeah. And it was just the cutest, most tender little moment that we shared, But it's like when it comes to adults, it's like we can't stare at each other too long because it means something. And that is sad, actually, by the way, because there's times where I'm like in such a high vibe mood. Like I just want to, like I'm feeling so good. And so I am extra nice to people that I meet. But sometimes people misinterpret that, especially men, like then they think that I'm like flirting. And it's sad because then I have to be more cut off to not send a wrong message. I think that's so sad.
But I do think that eye contact brings up all the attachment stuff. That's why I think it's like freaks people out.
So a message to the listeners, let's be more aware and mindful of eye contact and see what it brings up, or maybe do that exercise. The stare?
The exercise that I did with my husband was just, you're like eye gazing for like a minute or something. But the exercise I did in the somatic experiencing training was you are walking towards someone. So like you're on opposite ends of the room, and then you walk towards each other, and then the exercise is to notice what comes up for you in your body. And I had requested, please do not like you're going to have to like ease into that, or I'm just telling you, like, I know that something weird is going to come up for me. And she couldn't do it. And then she felt terrible, but I'm like, it was like both of our attachment stuff came out. Like it was really interesting.
Because she couldn't people please. Yeah.
And I was like so angry.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
So interesting. All
so
of this
interesting.
is fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, I love all of the work that you're doing. I love that you have this eclectic, holistic style where you incorporate so many modalities and really look at the whole picture of a person, from somatic to astrology to the mind, body, so all of it. I love it. Where can people find you? Do you have any last thoughts, last messages that you want to share?
You can find me on my website, which is KathrynDiazTherapy.com. And I have an Instagram that I very rarely update these days since I had a baby, but which is astrological. But I do check in with it. If you have any questions, you can send me a message on Instagram or through my website.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you to the listeners, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining me on the Moon Collective Sanctuary. Remember, your journey to a more fulfilling and empowered life continues beyond this episode. Until next time, may you remember who you are and stay open to embrace all that life has to offer. Ready to dive deeper into your journey of self-discovery? Join us for a transformative retreat at the Moon Collective Sanctuary. Visit mooncollectivesanctuary.com to learn more and book your spot.